Twist of fate, dilemma and redemption. Grandmame cleared her throat, feeling a bit embarrassed. I always believed that cherishing each other came naturally and didn't need to be taught, she admitted quietly. To herself, she added, couples only truly learn to cherish each other through facing life's ups and downs together. Tanya was at a loss for words when the maid entered and informed them that Mr. Zachary had returned. Startled, Grandmame swiftly excused herself, moving with surprising agility for her age. She turned to Tanya and said, I'll go back to my room and lie down. If Zach asks, tell him I'm unwell because I was worried about him and Serenity. Tanya was taken aback by Grandmame's plan. Don't blame me if Zach ends up sending you to the hospital, she warned. Oh, I'll be fine as long as he doesn't send me to the crematorium, Grandmame quipped, hurrying off to her room and pretending to be sick. After a while, she grew anxious as there was no knock on the door. Wondering if Zach was intentionally ignoring her supposed illness, she pondered whether to continue lying down or check on him. Meanwhile, Zachary returned and, not finding his grandmother, remained silent, turning to leave again. Concerned, Tanya followed him and asked, Are you okay, Zach? I'm fine, he replied sullenly. Tanya noticed his weary appearance and inquired further, You don't look fine. Did you not rest well? Where's Serenity? She left with her sister, Zach responded. Tanya froze, her heart sinking. She caught up to him and pressed for an explanation. What do you mean by she left? Zachary reached the outdoor swimming pool and removed his jacket, seemingly about to jump in. Tanya protested, worried about him catching a cold. Swimming in freezing weather won't bring Serenity back, she said, trying to dissuade him. You come from different worlds. It's for the best that she's gone. With your credentials, you can marry any girl you want. Let me arrange a meeting with the Levine or Dawson family's daughter. Tanya suggested there were many suitable noble ladies in Wiltspoon, emphasizing that Zach could find someone better than Serenity. She reassured him that Grandmame wouldn't interfere with his future marriage, having already repaid her. Just forget about Serenity. Don't torment yourself over her, Tanya urged, thinking the young couple had already parted ways. Marry a girl from a family that matches ours. It's easy for you to adapt, but it's tough for Serenity to keep up. The gap between you two is too vast for her to bridge, and she'll only exhaust herself trying to catch up. Accept that you've gone your separate ways. Think of it as letting each other go. Zachary looked at his mother, unable to respond. Tanya quickly revised her statement, saying, Think of it as both of you setting each other free. Mom, Zachary spoke up, aware that he needed to clarify things with his mother to avoid any misunderstandings. He spoke in a low voice, When I said Serenity left with her sister, I meant she went back for a short time to calm down. She's not leaving permanently, and I won't allow her not to come back either. He struggled with the decision to let her go with her sister, needing time to calm down himself, which made him want to take a dip in the pool to cool off. He reassured his mother that he wasn't trying to harm himself for sympathy. Curious, Tanya asked, You two aren't divorced yet? Zachary responded, Do you want me to get a divorce? Tanya expressed her mixed feelings about their compatibility, citing their different social circles and the difficulties Serenity would face in fitting in. She explained that while she had many acquaintances, she couldn't accept people from lower social statuses into her close circle, just like many others. She acknowledged that Zachary had fallen in love with Serenity and, despite her concerns, didn't want them to divorce. She pointed out their lack of a child after almost 5 months of marriage and questioned whether they had visited a hospital to check on their health. Zachary assured her that both he and Serenity were healthy, but they had only been a couple in name and hadn't tried for a child yet. Ignoring his mother's protests, Zachary jumped into the pool to cool down. Tanya called for Grandma May's help, thinking her son was trying to make Serenity worry about him. When Tanya realized it was futile, she hurried inside to seek Grandma May's assistance, believing that only she could talk some sense into Zachary. Once informed of Zachary's actions, Grandma May quickly got up, put on a jacket, and responded to Tanya, "I'll call him back. That little brat. He doesn't have to jump into the pool on a cold day." Tanya wondered if the situation was a dispute between grandmother and grandson. "Tanya, have someone prepare ginger soup for that boy. Make it spicier with more ginger," Grandma May instructed her daughter-in-law as they walked outside. Tanya agreed and directed the maid accordingly. When they reached the pool, Zachary was still swimming like a fish in the water. "Zachary York!" Grandma May shouted angrily. Zachary looked at his Nana and swam to the edge of the pool, sitting there. Approaching him, Grandma May expressed her distress. "What are you still doing sitting here? Hurry back inside the house." "I want to relax and calm down, Nana," Zachary replied. Grandma May scolded him, "If you want to calm down, lock yourself in your room. No one will bother you there. Why jump into the pool?" "It's quite effective," Zachary said indifferently. "The cold water cleared my mind and calmed my irritability." His words were true, but Grandma May was speechless. She urged him, "Since you've calmed down, put on your clothes and go inside. You'll catch a cold sitting here for too long." Tanya handed him his jacket and said, "If you catch a cold, I'll go and have a word with Serenity. She shouldn't be causing you to get sick." Zachary wasn't concerned about his mother going to Serenity, he knew she wouldn't do something unreasonable. Tanya choked and said, "A mother will do anything for her child." Grandma May intervened, "Zach, go back to the house and change. I want to talk to you." Looking up at his Nana, Zachary quipped sarcastically, "I thought you'd be bedridden for a long time." Grandma May wasn't bothered by the sarcasm and replied, "I'm old but strong. I won't get sick easily. Hurry and get up. Go back to the house to change your clothes." She playfully kicked him and added, "I'll wait for you in the pavilion. I had someone cook ginger soup for you, so come out after you finish it." With that, she turned and walked away. Tanya advised, "Zach, go change your clothes, or you'll really catch a cold. You don't want another jab, do you?" Zachary's bitter response came, "Mom, the one who forced me to get injections isn't by my side anymore." Tanya's heart sank as she responded heavily, "Zach, it's normal for Serenity to be angry after finding out the truth. Give her a few days to calm down. It'll be fine." "My deception shattered her trust in me. I don't know how long it'll take for her to trust me again," Zachary said, remembering how his mere call to Serenity frightened her. Tanya sighed, "You're still young and have your whole life ahead of you. As long as you don't give up, what if it takes more time? You have a lifetime to spend together." Yes, they had a lifetime ahead of them. Zachary fell silent for a long moment. With his mother's repeated urging, he finally got up and went back into the house to change his clothes. After changing his clothes, Zachary reluctantly drank the bowl of ginger soup under his mother's watchful gaze. He couldn't help but frown as the soup turned out to be way too spicy. "Mom, why is there so much ginger? It's too spicy," Zachary complained. "Your Nana asked for more ginger. If you don't like it, then don't do such foolish things in the future," Tanya responded. Zachary put down the bowl, explaining, I was just trying to calm down. I didn't mean to do anything foolish." Tanya replied dismissively, Sure, if you say so. Now go talk to Nana. She's the one who started it. You wouldn't have ended up like this if not for her." Tanya couldn't help but feel somewhat resentful towards her mother-in-law. Although her son was an exceptional man who could find a suitable wife, Grandma May insisted on him marrying Serenity. Initially, they wanted to thank Serenity for saving Zachary's life, but she refused any reward. Over time, Serenity and Grandma May grew close, and she won the old lady's favor. Tanya secretly wondered if Serenity rejected their monetary offers because she knew about Grandma May's true identity and wanted more. Her husband's response had been, "Let's wait and see." Eventually, Serenity became their daughter-in-law. Tanya didn't know about the contents of the contract between Zachary and Serenity, but she believed her son wouldn't put himself at a disadvantage. She assumed the contract must have been stricter on Serenity's part. However, as time passed, the couple's feelings for each other gradually warmed up. Tanya admitted that she had been waiting for the couple to divorce, as she felt Serenity wasn't worthy of her eldest son. Tanya believed it would be different if it were her second son. She would accept any woman he liked, regardless of her background. However, for Zachary, who's the family's successor, having a wife with no reputable family background like Serenity was problematic. Tanya worried about the pressure Serenity would face, especially when her sisters-in-law would likely come from rich families in the future. Tanya felt that Grandma May didn't consider these factors. The old woman liked Serenity and forced Zachary into the marriage without thinking about the challenges Serenity might face in the future. Zachary spoke up, "Mom, Serenity and I are destined to be together. If it weren't for fate, we wouldn't have developed feelings for each other, even if Nana wanted me to repay her." He believed in fate, understanding that some people were meant to be together despite any obstacles. "I don't regret marrying Serenity. I just feel like I let her down. When she married me, I didn't host a wedding ceremony. I only got her a wedding ring later on. She suffered a lot because of me." Zachary acknowledged that an ordinary person might have felt deeply aggrieved by the initial agreement. However, Serenity signed it and upheld her part of the contract. He regretted asking her not to fall in love with him in the contract, only to end up pleading with her to love him. Tanya contemplated how most people only married once in their lives, and Serenity married her son without receiving anything in return. It was natural for her to feel wronged. Tanya suggested, "You can make up for the betrothal gift and wedding ceremony." Zachary acknowledged that, but he couldn't deny that he had made Serenity suffer throughout their relationship. He stood up, saying, "I'll go talk to Nana. Don't blame her, perhaps this is a trial I have to face, a trial of love." He felt that his life had been relatively smooth, lacking any major setbacks. Now, it seemed like God was testing him. Tanya reminded him about their exposure to Serenity's circle, warning that her relatives and her sister's ex-husband's family might try to pester him. She emphasized not giving them any benefits for Serenity's sake, likening them to vampires who would come back for more if given anything even once. She expressed her disdain for them, stating that they treated Serenity and her sister horribly. Zachary assured her that he would act according to Serenity's wishes. Since she wasn't willing to reconcile, he had no intention of offering them benefits. He also clarified that Serenity's sister's ex-husband was already in the past, and they had no further connection. Tanya admired Serenity's ability to discern between those who were kind to her and those who weren't. She shared her admiration for how Serenity handled the online moral blackmail, and she felt sorry for Serenity's difficult upbringing. Zachary acknowledged Serenity's character, describing her as gentle yet strong. As long as she had moral standing, she would stand firm, but she would also apologize when she realized her mistake. Tanya's heart ached when she thought about Serenity's upbringing, and she hoped that if the young couple could reconcile, she could dote on her daughter-in-law even more in the future. Meanwhile, Grandma May sat in front of the stone table at the pavilion surrounded by blooming flowers. Zachary joined her, blocking her view of the flowers. She reminisced about how his grandfather used to do the same, sitting in front of her and becoming the focal point of her admiration. Grandma May offered help by talking to Serenity and putting in some good words for his grandson. Zachary remained silent for a moment before finally speaking. "She wants to calm down, so don't bother her for now. Let her have some space." Grandma May nodded with approval. "I'm glad you let her to go back to her sister. You've improved. You're not as domineering as before and didn't force her to stay. It's important to learn when to let go and give each other space." Zachary's expression was still sullen. "I'll find Saren in a couple of days, not to plead for me, but to apologize for lying to her initially." Grandma May chuckled, recognizing their stubbornness. "You have a brain, so think for yourself. Take your time and figure out what to do next. Love isn't just about falling for someone, it's about understanding, trusting, and accepting the other person." She shared her concerns about Zachary's marriage and how he used to distance himself from others, especially women outside the family. She revealed that after meeting Serenity, she consulted a fortune teller who said they were destined to be husband and wife, which strengthened her resolve to support their relationship. Zachary was taken aback by the accuracy of the fortune teller's prediction. Grandma May reassured him, "You two ended up developing feelings for each other. I believe you can overcome the challenges. A little suffering now will make the rest of your lives sweeter." Zachary's face tensed, indicating how much he missed Serenity even after just a few hours apart. He wanted to go pick her up from her sister's place immediately, but he knew he had to give her space. He contemplated whether he should wait for her to contact him first. Grandma May encouraged him, "Everything is achievable with earnestness. Serenity might be tough, but her heart isn't made of stone. I believe you can win her back." With a reassuring pat on his shoulder, Grandma May cheered him on, "Go get her. You have my moral support in chasing after your wife." Zachary detected the sarcasm in her tone and remarked, "Nana, I sense the sarcasm." Grandma May playfully denied it, asking, "Do you, now? How am I being sarcastic?" "I said before that I won't pursue my wife." Zachary reminded her. "Oh, right, you did mention that," Grandma May chuckled. "But you've been eating your words recently. The more you eat your words, the less surprising it becomes." Zachary was at a loss for words. Despite the bickering with his Nana, he understood why she insisted on his marriage to Serenity. His grandfather's last words and the mysterious fortune teller who predicted their destiny as a couple influenced her stubborn determination. He couldn't help but feel grateful to that fortune teller now, despite initially being skeptical. Otherwise, he might have considered smashing the fortune teller's stall. Meanwhile, Serenity left Zachary's villa with Liberty and returned to her house in Brenfield. Initially planning to pack up and leave, she changed her mind and only took a few sets of fresh clothes, deciding to stay at her sister's place. She left the pets behind and asked Mrs. Lane to send them back to Zachary since he was the one who had given them to her. As Mrs. Lane returned the pets to Zachary, he instructed her to take care of them and the flowers on the balcony, which were Serenity's favorites, until she returned. Mrs. Lane agreed to his request. Mrs. Lane was not surprised by the responsibility. She had been feeding the pets generously, unaware that Snowball the dog had become round and chubby, much to Zachary's amusement. Back at Liberty's place, Serenity rested and slept to recover. Liberty understands that her sister wasn't feeling well, lets her be, and went to her store, which was currently under renovation. When Liberty returned home late in the evening, she found Hank waiting outside the building. Despite feeling irritated, she maintained her composure and asked, "What is it?" in a cold tone. "Daddy," Sonny called out to Hank as he approached. Hank scooped up his son and playfully teased him for a moment. As Liberty parked the e-bike, Hank informed her, "Your granddad took some of your cousins to my office looking for me." Liberty frowned, curious about their sudden visit. "What for?" she asked. Hank had divorced Liberty, and even before the divorce was finalized, her granddad had taken money from Hank's mother. Liberty wondered if her ex-mother-in-law had managed to get the money back, but she doubted it. She knew her granddad was not the type to easily part with money. They probably found out that Serenity is Mr. York's wife and came to town looking for her. They went to her store but it was closed. "Serenity isn't answering their calls either," Hank explained. "They wanted to find you, but they didn't know where you live, so they came to me instead." Liberty was annoyed at the interference, and it caused Hank some trouble with his new wife, Jessica. Jessica didn't like the fact that Hank and Liberty were still in contact. Hank assured Liberty, "I didn't tell them where you're staying. I just said that we broke off contact after the divorce." Hank was concerned that Liberty might be pestered by her family, but more importantly, he didn't want it to affect their son's life. He suggested, "If they come to your place to cause trouble, just send Sonny to me. Don't let them scare him." As the conversation shifted, Hank mentioned Jessica's lack of pregnancy despite their intimate relationship. He was frustrated by his mother's comments, insisting that it was too early to conclude that Jessica was infertile. He explained that it had only been a short time since they got married, and it was not uncommon for couples to take several years before conceiving. Hank shared a story of a janitor at his company who got married at 19 but didn't conceive until she was 39. The woman had adopted 2 children before unexpectedly becoming pregnant with her biological child. The family was now doing well, and her adopted children were very caring and supportive. Hank hoped that he and Jessica wouldn't have to wait 20 years to have children, as that would only fuel further dissatisfaction from his family. Hank was worried that his relationship with Sonny would suffer if Jessica didn't get pregnant soon. He didn't want his son to grow distant from him, especially when he saw Liberty and Duncan together. Although he didn't think Duncan would replace him as Sonny's father, he was still concerned. Hank thought of taking Sonny with him for a period to strengthen their bond as father and son, and also to let Jessica spend time with him. If Jessica couldn't conceive and Liberty wanted to remarry, Hank would fight for Sonny's custody and bring him back. After all, Hank was still Sonny's father, and he couldn't bear to see his son call another man father. Liberty expressed her concerns about Hank taking Sonny with him. She pointed out the potential conflicts between their families and how it might affect Sonny negatively. Liberty reminded Hank of the conditions they agreed upon during the divorce and urged him to abide by them. Hank was angry about his financial situation, losing his job and income. He suspected Liberty might have influenced Zachary's actions, leading to his current hardships. He felt resentful towards her for taking his money and causing him to lose everything. Liberty responded with a vague smile, reiterating her promise not to retaliate against Hank. She thanked him for coming over and carried Sonny upstairs. As Hank left, he tried to make light of the situation, jokingly asking for coffee. Liberty coldly responded that there was no cup for him, leaving Hank speechless. Later, Sonny asked his mother why Daddy didn't live with them, and Liberty explained that Hank's workplace was far from their current home. When Sonny asked why they weren't living in their old home, Liberty explained that it was under renovation and would take a long time to be ready. Upon arriving home, Serenity had made dinner and was doodling on her drawing board. Sunny happily greeted his aunt and shared a warm moment with her, showing his affection. Sunny showered Serenity with love and joy, hugging her tightly and planting sweet kisses on her cheek. Serenity was delighted by her nephew's affection. Serenity asked her why she was back late. Liberty explained that the interior designer's work ran late, and she had thought of cooking for Serenity, but she had already prepared dinner. Serenity shared that she had been emotionally hurt but wasn't physically sick. Liberty suggested that she should take a walk the next day to improve her mood and not stay cooped up at home. Serenity decided to go back to work the next day to keep herself busy and distracted from her thoughts about Zachary. Liberty mentioned running into Hank downstairs, who informed her that their granddad had come to town with his grandsons. Serenity was not happy about her old family coming to visit, fearing they might ask for money after finding out about Zachary's identity as the heir to the York family and her status as his wife. Liberty remarked that they likely would seek financial help from Zachary. Serenity expressed her frustration, mentioning that her old family was shameless in their approach. Liberty revealed that they even asked for a share of the money she received from the divorce, but she refused to lend them any. As they sat down for dinner, the doorbell rang, and Serenity suspected that her old family might have found their way to her home. As soon as Serenity opened the door, Jessica swung her hand toward her in an attempt to slap her. However, Serenity reacted quickly, catching Jessica's hand before it could land. Surprised to see Serenity instead of Liberty, Jessica demanded to know why she was there. She accused Liberty of seducing Hank, her husband. Serenity sarcastically retorted that her sister had already divorced Hank and had no interest in him anymore. Jessica insisted that she and Hank had just gotten married and accused Liberty of trying to take revenge on her by losing weight to attract Hank. Serenity dismissed Jessica's claims, stating that her sister had no intention of remarrying Hank. Jessica continued to accuse Liberty of trying to seduce Hank and regain her figure to win him back. Serenity brushed off these accusations, reminding Jessica that many people lose weight for various reasons and that her sister's weight loss had nothing to do with her. Jessica, growing angrier, claimed that Liberty wanted to be prettier than her after losing weight. Serenity defended her sister, asserting that she was already prettier than Jessica. Jessica acknowledged that her words were irrational, but she couldn't help feeling angry. In the past, Hank used to complain about Liberty's weight, and after the divorce, he kept looking for her. Jessica believed that Liberty's weight loss was the reason Hank sought her out again. As Liberty approached, Jessica expressed her resentment and fury, warning her not to seduce Hank. Liberty found amusement in Jessica's accusations and assured her that she had no interest in getting back together with Hank. Liberty thanked Jessica sarcastically for taking Hank away, as it allowed her to divorce him and secure the assets she desired. She promised Jessica that even if Hank regretted his decision later, she would never give him a second chance. Jessica insisted that Hank loved her the most, but Liberty questioned why she was still afraid if that was the case. Liberty recognized that marriage involved not only the couple but also their families, leading to compromises and complexities. When asked about Hank's visit, Liberty revealed that he came to see Sunny and discuss some matters with her. She believed Jessica already knew about their meeting since she was Hank's secretary. Jessica, still upset, didn't like the fact that Hank and Liberty still had frequent interactions despite their divorce. She knew that Hank had found out where Liberty lived through Olivia, rendering the block on his number ineffective. Serenity emphasized to Jessica that it was Hank who sought her out, not the other way around, and suggested Jessica question her husband if she doubted the truth. She mockingly advised Jessica to cut off her husband's legs if she wanted to prevent him from visiting. Jessica, feeling jealous of Serenity's life with Mr. York, told Liberty to move away to avoid Hank coming to see her. But Serenity defended her sister, telling Jessica to leave instead if she couldn't handle her own husband. She scolded Jessica and shut the door, feeling better after venting her frustration. Back at the table, Liberty didn't let Jessica's visit bother her and tried to enjoy the meal. Serenity received a video call from Zachary but remained quiet. Zachary wondered if her phone was broken and offered to send her a new one. Serenity, still silent, showed Zachary Sunny eating happily. Sunny greeted Zachary and praised his aunt's delicious cooking. Zachary couldn't help feeling bitter since he couldn't taste Serenity's cooking. Zachary playfully asked if Sunny could share some with him, to which Sunny replied that Uncle Zach couldn't eat it because he was inside the phone. Everyone laughed at Sunny's innocent response. Zachary then asked Sunny to show him Aunt Saren, but Sunny didn't understand why since she was right there. Zachary struggled to explain the concept of video calls to the 3-year-old. Serenity ended the video call with Zachary, who felt disappointed that she didn't let him see Sunny. He wished he had teased Sunny more to have a reason to call Serenity again. Liberty noticed her sister's silence but refrained from crying, allowing Serenity to open up when she felt ready. After dinner, Serenity wanted to go out for some fresh air using Liberty's e-bike. Liberty reminded her to stay close as the bike's battery might not last long. She also warned Serenity not to go drinking with Jasmine, as Zachary was worried about her safety. Serenity's mood darkened at the mention of Zachary's concern, feeling irritated that her sister was helping him control her. However, Sunny's excitement to go for a ride cheered her up. They both prepared with helmets and jackets before Serenity rode the e-bike with Sunny on the child seat. As she pushed the e-bike, Serenity noticed Zachary standing in front of the building. Not wanting to engage with him, she quickly rode away, ignoring his calls. Zachary tried to catch up but couldn't. He decided to buy an e-bike to accompany Serenity next time she goes for a ride. He had enjoyed various modes of transportation with her during the time he concealed his identity. Serenity took Sunny to a nearby supermarket and bought snacks and milk. Returning to Liberty's block, she looked around to ensure Zachary wasn't there, feeling relieved but conflicted. In front of the block, Serenity asked Sunny to get down from the e-bike while she parked it in the public garage. As Sunny thought the snacks were all for him, he held onto them protectively. Suddenly, he spotted Zachary and joyfully called out to him, wanting to be picked up. Hearing Sunny's call, Serenity turned her head to see Zachary holding their nephew. Distracted for a moment, she accidentally collided with a nearby motorbike, causing the e-bike to tilt. Zachary rushed over to check if she was hurt, but Serenity brushed off his concern, maintaining a cold and indifferent demeanor. Zachary felt hurt by her distant behavior and tried to help with the bikes, but Serenity refused his assistance, deciding to handle it herself. She called Liberty to bring pen and paper to leave a note for the motorbike owner she accidentally damaged. As Liberty brought the items, she understood that Zachary had been standing there all along, unwilling to leave Serenity despite her rejection. Feeling exasperated, she gestured for Zachary to follow her out of the garage. Reluctantly tearing his eyes away from Serenity, Zachary followed Liberty out of the garage. Serenity wrote an apology note for the damaged motorbike, and Zachary offered to move the things she bought upstairs. Once they reached the apartment, Zachary waited while Liberty and Sunny went in. Zachary suggested helping with heavy lifting in the future, but Serenity seemed uninterested and went straight into the house without inviting him for a hot drink. Feeling disappointed, he followed Liberty inside. She offered him a drink to warm up, but he was preoccupied with thoughts of living separately from Serenity and missing their nights together. Alone in his room, Zachary found companionship only in his pillow. Later, he sat on the couch, and Sunny joined him on his lap. The little guy addressed him as Uncle Zach, and Zachary absent-mindedly picked up the glass of water Serenity had poured, only to find it scalding hot. Zachary couldn't help but think that Serenity had brought the glass of hot water out for him, despite being angry and giving him the cold shoulder. Her actions showed that she still cared, even if she didn't express it verbally. This realization brought some comfort to Zachary. As Sunny tried to open the bag of snacks, Zachary quickly moved the glass of hot water away to avoid any accidents. Sunny offered Zachary some chips from the grocery bag, and though Zachary wasn't a fan of snacks, he accepted them with a smile. Sunny insisted on keeping the rest of the snacks to himself. Sunny eventually fell asleep in Liberty's arms, and Zachary decided to leave as it felt awkward sitting there in silence with his sister-in-law. As he walked away, he hoped that Serenity would come out to see him, but her bedroom door remained closed, leaving him feeling disappointed. Zachary then went to Brinfield, the place where they spent many moments together. As he stood outside the door, memories of their early days of marriage came flooding back. Despite their marriage starting as a convenience, those moments held a special place in Zachary's heart. Zachary decided to check Serenity's bedroom to see if she had taken all her belongings. To his relief, he found that she hadn't taken everything. Some of her clothes were still in the closet. He felt a sense of fear at the idea of losing her, something he had never experienced before. Sitting on her bed, he felt a connection to her through her belongings and vowed not to lie to her again. He contemplated giving her space and decided that a week of no interaction would be enough punishment if he ever did something to hurt or deceive her. The next morning, Serenity returned to the shop and resumed work, determined not to let heartbreak affect her ability to make money. She went to Wiltspoon School to check on things and saw Mr. Charles, who knew about her being Mrs. York. He jokingly mentioned that he had predicted her rise to riches, much to his wife's annoyance. Mr. Charles' prediction about Serenity had indeed come true, as she had gone from humble beginnings to a life of wealth and privilege. With a smile, Serenity assured Mr. Charles that her shop would remain open for business. He had heard rumors that people were willing to buy her business at any cost because of the positive energy it possessed, especially now that they knew she was married to Mr. York. Curious about her life with the York family, Mr. Charles asked if she was allowed to work. Serenity responded diplomatically, admitting she was a free person. Although she was upset about Zachary's lies, she acknowledged that the Yorks were of high social standing and came from a different world. Mr. Charles then playfully suggested betting on whether Serenity would still keep the shop open. Serenity declined to bet on herself, but Mr. Charles decided to wager his secret savings on it and promised to buy her a meal if he won. They set a 1-month time frame for the bet, and Mr. Charles walked away in high spirits, confident in his fortune-telling abilities. As Serenity began preparing her shop for the day, Jasmine arrived on her e-bike and teased her for not taking a few days off. Serenity replied that she couldn't resist the opportunity to make money, even in the face of heartbreak. Jasmine smiled, happy to see the familiar determined Serenity. After parking her bike, she joined Serenity in moving the display racks and inquired if Mr. York had bothered her afterward. Serenity responded with a hint of frustration, expressing doubt that he would give her a few days to cool down. Jasmine reminded her to turn a blind eye to his overbearing behavior as long as he didn't go as far as he did in the past, when he had practically put her under house arrest. She explained that Mr. York was distressed and afraid of losing her. As they continued their conversation, They were interrupted by old Mr. Hunt and his family, who entered the shop with big smiles. Old Mr. Hunt was excited about Serenity's newfound wealth and proudly presented her with local produce. He even offered to work the cash register, claiming he could handle the money. Serenity was skeptical of her grandfather's intentions, knowing that they had come for money. She politely declined his offer to cook for them and mentioned that she had already ordered takeaway. She maintained her stance and didn't allow her family's expectations to pressure her into serving them. Old Mr. Hunt suggested ordering takeaway for breakfast and reminded Serenity to pay for it later, revealing his constant attempts to milk money from her. Serenity couldn't help but find it amusing, seeing that her family's behavior remained unchanged. She coldly responded that if they ordered the food, they should pay for it themselves. Ignoring her remark, old Mr. Hunt tried to make amends, claiming that they should let bygones be bygones and be one big happy family. He even suggested making a public apology online. He then went on to make outrageous demands, asking Serenity to persuade her husband to give jobs to her cousins and sisters, as well as set them up with the younger York family members for marriage. Jasmine couldn't hold back her sarcasm, pointing out that not just anyone could marry into the York family. But old Mr. Hunt believed all his granddaughters were equally deserving and should have a chance at marrying into wealth. The Hunts' delusions continued as they fantasized about high society accepting them, thanks to their connection with Mrs. York. They were oblivious to the fact that people might view their claims with cynicism rather than envy. The whole town was aware of the wrongdoings of the Hunts towards Serenity and her sister. Now that they knew Zachary was Mr. York, the Hunts shamelessly portrayed themselves as the in-laws to the Yorks, taking audacity to a new level. Furious at their audacity, Serenity didn't want to waste any more time with them and demanded they leave immediately. John and the others hesitated but eventually retreated, leaving old Mr. Hunt to face Serenity alone, assuming she wouldn't physically harm him due to his seniority. However, when old Mr. Hunt threatened to cause a scene at Zachary's office if she didn't give him $1 million, Serenity refused to resort to violence. Instead, she calmly walked away and filled a bucket with water. As she returned and poured the water over him, drenching him entirely, the Hunts were stunned. Old Mr. Hunt, feeling his authority challenged, reacted angrily and insulted Serenity and her ancestors. In a snarky response, Serenity reminded him that he had forfeited being her granddad long ago when he took her parents' money, evicted them, and denied them the right to visit their parents' graves. Unfazed, Serenity declared she wouldn't give him a single penny and even taunted him to take her life if he dared. Old Mr. Hunt was left seething with anger, questioning why he had such an unforgiving granddaughter like Serenity. "I'll cause a commotion at your husband's office and demand the money. If you don't pay up, I'll go to your in-laws, and you'll be an embarrassment to them," threatened old Mr. Hunt. He had planned this confrontation carefully with his grandsons to extract money from Serenity, especially now that she was Mrs. York. The Hunts believed that Serenity would be desperate to maintain the Yorks' reputation and would pay them hush money to avoid any public scenes. They're prepared to create a spectacle at York Corporation or York's residence and publicize it online, betting that it would cause trouble between Serenity and her in-laws that could lead to divorce. Their malicious intentions were interrupted when Zachary appeared. He had been awake early, waiting for Serenity downstairs, and upon realizing she was at the shop, he quickly made his way there. Seeing the Hunt family harassing his wife, Zachary's security details shut them out. Old Mr. Hunt's audacity knew no bounds, even though Serenity and her sister were his granddaughters. They were intent on taking advantage of Serenity's marriage to Zachary for their own gain, despite their own financial stability. Zachary was infuriated by the Hunts' behavior. They seem to view serenity and liberty as nothing more than a source of money, disregarding their familial ties and treating them with no respect or consideration. The Hunt family's greed and insensitivity were evident, making it clear that they were willing to exploit their own family for personal gain. The Hunt family treated Serenity and her sister like enemies rather than family. Old Mr. Hunt, in particular, showed no regard for Serenity's marriage to Zachary and openly insulted her. He suggested that Zachary should divorce her due to her lack of manners and cultural refinement. Old Mr. Hunt even went as far as recommending violence as a means of controlling Serenity and advocated beating her into submission. Jasmine was appalled by old Mr. Hunt's behavior and couldn't believe that he was Serenity's grandfather. She was tempted to reprimand him for his outrageous words. Meanwhile, Serenity, seething with anger, filled more buckets of water, seemingly ready to splash old Mr. Hunt again. However, when Zachary stepped in, the atmosphere changed. He showed a tender side, offering to help Serenity with the heavy lifting and assuring her that he would do anything she asked. This unexpected gesture left old Mr. Hunt speechless and intimidated. He decided to flee, quickly making his escape in his grandson's luxurious car. Old Mr. Hunt's behavior had always been questionable, even when Serenity was born. He hoped for a son to carry on the family name, but she turned out to be a girl, considering her a liability. He expressed regret for not leaving her to drown in a chamber pot when she was a baby. His disdain and bitterness towards Serenity were evident, despite her success in life. Old Mr. Hunt's selfish and callous nature was exposed, revealing the true depth of his resentment towards her. In the world, there seemed to be no justice, as old Mr. Hunt's other granddaughters, who were more dutiful, envied Serenity for marrying a wealthy husband. When they saw their grandfather making a quick escape, John and the others followed suit, fleeing in their cars. Zachary, feeling furious, shouted after them, daring old Mr. Hunt not to run. He even considered having his bodyguards forcibly take the old man away if needed, but it turned out unnecessary as old Mr. Hunt left on his own. Serenity and Jasmine came out of the shop, and Jasmine advised Serenity not to make peace with the Hunts, even if they offered a public apology online. She pointed out that they are jealous of Serenity's success. However, Serenity revealed that old Mr. Hunt was indeed her grandfather and shared some memories of her family's complicated relationship. Jasmine expressed disbelief that a grandfather could treat his own granddaughter so poorly. Serenity reflected on the fact that some people couldn't love their children equally. Zachary tried to comfort Serenity, but she pushed him away, warning him not to get involved. She was concerned about the potential damage to his reputation in a family dispute. Zachary assured Serenity that he valued her more than his reputation, but she and Jasmine still walked away without responding. Zachary remained puzzled and frozen while his bodyguards were anxious. Eventually, Zachary remembered the bouquet of roses he had bought for Serenity, which was still in the car. He had told his bodyguard, Jim, that he would stay by Serenity's side even if she chased him away with a broom. Mr. Zachary had initially mentioned putting his dignity aside to win Serenity back, but he seemed to hesitate when the moment came. Jim hurried to the car to retrieve the bouquet of roses Zachary had bought for Serenity. Handing the bouquet to Zachary, Jim reminded him that he hadn't given the flowers to Serenity yet. Zachary snapped out of his thoughts and realized he had the roses. He thanked Jim and mentioned that he would let Sam know to double his bonus, but Jim insisted that the bonus didn't matter as long as Zachary and Serenity reconciled. With the bouquet in hand, Zachary was about to enter the shop when he changed his mind. He sent his security detail home, feeling that their presence would remind Serenity of the lie he had told her. The bodyguards were taken aback, but Zachary proceeded into the shop alone. Inside the shop, Serenity was busy crafting, and Jasmine was quietly observing her. Zachary offered Serenity the bouquet, but she declined, asking him to take the flowers away and give her some time alone. Tension filled the air between them. As they stood at a standstill, Elisa's voice called out, announcing her return. Elisa had returned from her holidays and came directly to the shop with gifts for Serenity and Jasmine. Seeing Zachary there, she was shocked. Serenity looked stunned, and Zachary tightened his grip on her hand. Elisa, not realizing the tension between them, enthusiastically showed off the presents she had brought. The situation became even more awkward with Elisa's unexpected arrival. Elisa was shocked to see Zachary in the shop with Serenity, holding her hand and giving her a bouquet of roses. At first, she couldn't believe her eyes, thinking it might be someone who simply resembled Zachary. But as she observed them closely, she realized it was indeed him. Elisa knew about Zachary's reputation for being devoted to his wife, so she understood that Serenity had his heart. However, the revelation that Serenity's husband had the last name York made her wonder if he could be the same Zachary she had been in love with for years. As a mix of emotions washed over her, Elisa approached Zachary and confronted him about his presence there. He seemed displeased with her and asked her to stay away. Elisa, feeling hurt, questioned him about why he had kept his identity a secret from Serenity and herself. Serenity stepped in to explain that she had only recently discovered who Zachary really was and didn't intend to keep it from Elisa. She also acknowledged that if she had known about Zachary's true identity, she wouldn't have encouraged Elisa to pursue him, as she wouldn't want to compete with her friend for his affection. Elisa criticized Zachary for lying to both her and Serenity, pretending to be single and playing along with her courtship attempts. She felt hurt that he had known about their plan and never mentioned his marriage to Serenity. She expressed her disappointment that he made her the other woman in her cousin's marriage, causing her pain and embarrassment. Elisa emphasized that Zachary wasn't the only man in the world for her, and she had the right to seek her happiness without being deceived. Elisa confronted Serenity about Zachary's deception, wondering what kind of story he had fed her and whether he had pretended to be a salaryman. Surprisingly, Elisa's anger was directed more at Zachary for keeping both her and Serenity in the dark about his marriage. She admitted that she might have given up on pursuing Zachary if she had known he was married. Elisa asked Serenity about their marriage date, and Serenity mentioned it was early October. Elisa then revealed that their wedding anniversary was on the 10th of October, accusing Zachary of confessing his feelings for her after he and Serenity had already gotten married. Elisa believed that Zachary allowed her advances to feed his ego, even though he had not accepted her feelings. Zachary was at a loss for words, feeling nervous and looking to Serenity for support. Serenity remained silent and unresponsive, having already expressed her feelings to Zachary earlier. Jasmine intervened, taking Elisa aside for a private conversation. Serenity continued with her crafting, trying to regain her composure after Elisa's accusations. Zachary, still agitated, asked Serenity to leave with him, but she suggested he should go. He questioned whether Serenity cared more about Elisa than him and whether she would leave him just because Elisa was upset. The situation was tense as Serenity seemed to consider asking Zachary to leave due to Elisa's feelings. Serenity looked up as Zachary walked away, feeling a sudden wave of hurt wash over her. She wasn't sure if the hurt was caused by Zachary or herself. Jasmine and Elisa returned to the shop and found Serenity's crafting tools covered in blood, with traces of blood on the scissors. Worried about Serenity's well-being, they called out to her and found her in the loot tending to a deep cut on her finger. Serenity explained that she accidentally cut herself with the scissors, but she assured them it was not a big deal and that she had already applied ointment to stop the bleeding. However, her finger was still bleeding through the bandage. Jasmine insisted she go to the hospital to get it checked, but Serenity brushed it off, saying she often got cuts and knew how to handle it. Her friends continued to express concern, urging her to get a tetanus shot and have the wound checked properly. However, Serenity insisted that she was fine and that the cut would heal in a few days. Jasmine scolded her for not taking her injury seriously and pointed out that it had been years since she last got a cut. She asked if something had happened with Zachary that led to her accident. "It has nothing to do with Zachary. I cut myself by accident," Serenity replied to Elisa, who had expressed concern over the injury. Elisa reassured Serenity that she didn't blame her and understood that Zachary had deceived both of them. She was angry at him for making fools out of them, but she had already given up on Zachary long ago when she found out he was married. Elisa encouraged Serenity to take her time in forgiving him and suggested making him suffer a bit for his deception. Despite Serenity's resistance, Elisa insisted on taking her to the hospital to get her injured finger checked. Jasmine also supported Elisa's decision, and eventually, Serenity gave in to their persuasion and let Elisa drive her to the hospital. Meanwhile, Zachary returned to his office after the encounter with Elisa and Serenity. His assistant, Josh, was surprised by his sudden return and asked if there was another argument with his wife. Zachary vented his frustrations about the situation with Elisa and Serenity, expressing his difficulty in appeasing women and his jealousy over Elisa. He suggested that Zachary's jealousy of Elisa might be affecting his relationship with Serenity, and he advised Zachary to address his feelings and communicate better with his wife. Zachary, still hot and bothered, seemed to finally realize the impact of his actions and feelings on his relationship with Serenity. Zachary wore a sour expression and refrained from speaking further. Seeing that reasoning with him at the moment would be futile, Josh offered an alternative suggestion. He proposed that Zachary stay in the office while he handles the investigation. Josh believed that focusing on work could be a good distraction and allow some time for the conflict between Zachary and Serenity to settle naturally. Acknowledging the need for a distraction, Zachary reluctantly agreed and playfully accused Josh of using the investigation as an excuse to take some time off himself. Josh laughed and admitted that he had been working hard for Zachary for years and deserved a break. As Josh made his way to the bookshop, he decided to bring some flowers and Jasmine's favorite desserts as a thoughtful gesture. Arriving at the shop, he found Jasmine sitting behind the cash register reading a book. He handed her the flowers meant for Serenity, and she explained that they were from Mr. York. Noticing the red-stained paper towels in the trash can, Josh became concerned and asked about the blood. Jasmine informed him that Serenity had cut her finger with scissors, and the bleeding hadn't stopped despite bandaging it. Elisa had taken her to the hospital for medical attention. Realizing that Zachary was probably the reason behind Serenity's injury, Josh took out his phone and discreetly snapped some pictures of the bloodied paper towels. Jasmine observed him taking the pictures but didn't object. Based on the timing of Josh's arrival at the bookshop, Jasmine deduced that Zachary had probably gone to the office. Josh decided not to send the photos to Zachary immediately since Elisa had taken Serenity to the hospital. He secretly hoped for a half-day off to spend time with Jasmine before returning to work. Josh asked Jasmine what happened when Elisa found out about Zachary being Mr. York. Jasmine revealed that Elisa blamed Mr. York for lying to Serenity. She noted how wealthy and powerful men like Zachary could manipulate the truth to keep others in the dark. However, she appreciated that Josh had been honest with her and didn't hide anything, even though he had previously run background checks on her. When Jasmine asked if Josh had any gossip about the head of his household, Julian, he joked that it was almost impossible to find anything about Julian unless he wanted to disclose it himself. Just then, Jasmine's phone rang, displaying Mother Superior on the caller ID. She signaled for Josh to keep quiet while she took the call. Josh was not happy that Jasmine's parents were still unaware of his pursuit of their daughter. He was frustrated that Mrs. Sox mistook his invitations for Jasmine as being directed at Drake. Jasmine answered her mother's call and listened to her request to come home early for dinner at Aunt Rachel's place. Jasmine asked about the occasion, and Mrs. Sox explained that it was a get-together since Sean was back for a few days. Jasmine became concerned and asked if Sean would try anything, hoping he wouldn't take advantage of the situation with Zachary and Serenity's troubled relationship. Jasmine shared that Aunt Rachel had sent Sean to work at the branch office in Havenmill, where he was not allowed to disclose his true identity as the heir of the Lows. He had to work from the bottom up and was on a tight budget, renting his own place and covering his expenses. Despite his challenges, the Lows were grateful that Zachary had stopped causing them trouble, and Jasmine realized that it was partly because of Josh's pursuit of her. She acknowledged that Josh and Zachary both knew when to back off, especially considering that Sean had a crush on Serenity but arrived too late as she was already married to Zachary. Mrs. Sox was worried that Sean might still have feelings for Serenity and disapproved of him pestering a married woman. She then informed Jasmine about another potential suitor she had found for her, an executive from their company who recently broke up with his girlfriend of 8 years. Jasmine wasn't keen on going on a blind date and had a low opinion of the man for leaving his girlfriend hanging for so long. Mrs. Sox urged her to try harder to find a husband and pointed out that she was already 26, emphasizing that Serenity might become a mother before Jasmine settles down. Jasmine playfully teased her mom about being the godmother to Serenity's kids, which didn't sit well with Mrs. Sox. She challenged Jasmine to prove them wrong and find a man herself. Josh made an unintentional blunder by talking to Mrs. Sox on the phone without Jasmine's approval. Mrs. Sox recognized him and was surprised that he was pretending to be Jasmine's date. Josh introduced himself and tried to be polite, but Mrs. Sox was amused that he was playing along with Jasmine's date scenario and remembered him from previous interactions with her son. Despite the initial misunderstanding about Josh's intentions, he clarified to Mrs. Sox that he was pursuing Jasmine, not Drake. Mrs. Sox was relieved and happy to hear that Josh was interested in her daughter and not her son. She found it amusing that someone was attracted to Jasmine and even hoped for it secretly. Josh assured Mrs. Sox that he was serious about Jasmine and requested her support without any love rivals. Mrs. Sox was ecstatic that her dream of Josh falling for Jasmine had come true. She gave her approval and invited Josh to join Jasmine at her aunt's place later. Jasmine watched the conversation unfold, pleased that she had kept her family in the dark about Josh's pursuit. With her mother's approval and Josh's dedication, Jasmine was now more convinced that she had made the right decision in keeping her family unaware of her relationship with Josh. She was eager to see how things would unfold at her aunt's dinner. Unfortunately, these pleasant days were about to come to an end. After ending the call with Mrs. Sox, Josh returned the phone to Jasmine and suggested they go to her aunt's house for dinner. He inquired about his status and what he should prepare for the occasion. Jasmine responded with a smile, telling him that even if he were a scumbag, her aunt and others would still think highly of him because of his status as Mr. Buchan from the prestigious Buchan family. Jasmine knew that her aunt admired Serenity's good fortune in marrying one of the most outstanding men in Wilkespoon, and they often looked at her with envy when praising Serenity. Josh confidently stated that he was not a scumbag but rather exceptional. Jasmine playfully teased him, saying that she must have been a great person in her past life for him to like her in this life. Josh humorously responded that they were both great people in their past lives, which is why they were destined to meet again in this life and, hopefully, in the next. Jasmine acknowledged that they were not officially a couple yet, but Josh explained that he needed to show his resolve to her family to prevent further blind dates from being arranged for her. He wanted to make it clear that he was interested in her and not her brother, Drake, as her mother had misunderstood. Jasmine laughed, saying that Josh's overly indulgent behavior towards Drake had contributed to the misunderstandings. She shared that her mother would sigh and joke about them switching places because she believed Josh was interested in Drake. Josh countered that he spoiled Drake because he was like a brother to him, but Jasmine pointed out that Drake wasn't actually his brother. They bantered playfully about people's different worries. Josh had suggested that he could be her errand boy for collecting rent if she ever got tired of doing it herself, and he humorously expressed curiosity about having house keys hanging all over him. Jasmine chuckled, telling Josh he could play the role of a landlord anytime he wanted. Josh explained that while his family owned houses and stores, he only collected rent on his mother's behalf and received some remuneration for it. She then mentioned that Sean had returned and requested them to join for dinner. Jasmine assured Josh that Sean wouldn't bother Serenity and asked him and Zachary to stop attacking Low Enterprise. Jasmine had figured everything out after learning about Zachary's connection to the York family. She couldn't believe that Josh had no hand in the attacks on Low Enterprise. Josh defended Zachary, stating that he had told Mr. Lowe the reason behind terminating their cooperation out of consideration for both Jasmine and him. Otherwise, Low Enterprise would still be in the dark about the reasons. Regarding Sean's feelings for Serenity, Jasmine recalled a conversation with her mother. After New Year's, Aunt Rachel decided to send Sean to the branch office in Havenmill, froze his bank account and allowance, and forbade him from contacting Serenity. Sean was furious and asked his mother why she was doing this to him. Aunt Rachel explained that Serenity's husband was not an ordinary employee but the CEO of York Corporation. Sean was shocked to learn the truth and realized he couldn't compete with Serenity's husband without even knowing his identity. Aunt Rachel reminded him that he had met Serenity's husband at a banquet before, where he had greeted Sean as well. Sean was left in shock and disbelief upon learning that Serenity's husband was Mr. York, Zachary. He couldn't believe that Serenity had married someone with such a powerful and influential status. His mother assured him that it was true and that Zachary himself had confirmed it, warning Sean to stop pestering Serenity for the sake of Low Enterprise. Sean, heartbroken and defeated, agreed to listen to his parents' advice and focus on his work at the branch office in Havenmill. Jasmine comforted him, believing that he would eventually find someone better suited for him. Josh promised that he would stop attacking Low Enterprise as long as Mr. Lowe stopped pursuing Serenity. He knew that trying to compete with Zachary for Serenity would be futile and immoral. Jasmine shifted the conversation to Serenity and wondered why she was taking so long at the hospital. She decided to call Elisa to inquire about Serenity's well-being. Josh also sent the photo he had taken earlier to Zachary, informing him about Serenity's injury and her hospital visit. Zachary responded showing his concern. Zachary was deeply disturbed by the news of Serenity's injury. He blamed himself for his temper and called Josh to find out which hospital Serenity was in. After getting the information, he immediately called Serenity to check on her well-being. Elisa answered the call as Serenity was unable to hold the phone due to her wound. She reassured Zachary that Serenity was getting an IV infusion and had received the necessary medical attention. Zachary, still worried, asked which hospital they were in, but Elisa retorted and reminded him of his capability to find out such information himself. She also reminded him to watch his tone when speaking to her, as she was Serenity's older cousin. Despite her bitterness, Elisa cared for Serenity's well-being and wanted Zachary to realize the impact of his actions on those around him. Zachary was left speechless after his conversation with Elisa. He couldn't deny that Elisa had a way of asserting her seniority as Serenity's older cousin. Feeling a mix of emotions, he decided to hang up the call. Zachary deduced that Serenity must be at Wilkesboon Community Hospital, considering its proximity to the school. Elisa continued to express her feelings, teasing Zachary about his sullen behavior towards her and playfully asking him to address her more politely. Elisa reassured Serenity that Zachary was a good man, hailing from a wealthy and prestigious family like the Yorks, which were at the top of the social ladder. Despite her own past feelings for Zachary, Elisa encouraged Serenity not to lose him and reminded her of the stark reality between their worlds. She advised Serenity to stay strong and not to be content with her current situation, as being a noblewoman came with its own challenges. Elisa shared her mother's experience of struggling with her grandmother when she first married, emphasizing the importance of self-reliance and strength for women in an unfair world. Serenity listened quietly to Elisa's advice and observations. Elisa excused herself to get some water and returned with a warm cup for Serenity. She even offered to feed her, showing genuine concern and sisterly affection. Elisa reiterated the importance of Serenity's own strength and resilience as she faced the challenges of being a noblewoman and the wife of the heir to the York family. She encouraged Serenity to think carefully about her future with Zachary and whether she was willing to adapt and change herself to fit into his world. Serenity acknowledged the significant gap between their backgrounds and the pressure she would face as Zachary's wife. She contemplated the difficulties ahead and the scrutiny she would endure in the public eye. She also considered the fact that Zachary is devoted to their relationship and wouldn't agree to a breakup. However, Serenity was realistic about the challenges they might encounter due to their differing backgrounds and the potential strain it could put on their relationship. She felt that without a strong family backing her, she needed to find a way to strengthen herself. Before, she had simpler aspirations, content with running her bookstore and saving money for a home. She never dreamed of marrying into nobility, nor did she have grand ambitions. However, her life took an unexpected turn when she married Zachary, and now she had to face the reality of her new life. As Elisa had already pointed out, everyone knew the reasons behind her sudden marriage to Zachary, so Serenity didn't feel the need to elaborate further. She needed time to think and reflect on the path she wanted to take and whether she could handle the challenges ahead. Serenity was stunned by the revelation that she had been deceived by both Grandma May and Zachary. The man she had thought was just an ordinary salaryman turned out to be the eldest young master of the prestigious York family. It was like a plot straight out of a novel, but this was real life, and she was left feeling utterly bewildered and unsure of what to do next. She found herself in a dilemma. She couldn't leave, but she also couldn't easily continue on this unexpected path. It was difficult to replicate her aunt's success story, especially in the current times where opportunities seemed scarce and different challenges awaited her. Serenity was aware of the importance of self-improvement and not relying on a man for her future. She had seen from her sister's marriage that trusting a man to support her could be risky as their attitudes might change unexpectedly. As she was lost in her thoughts, she noticed several men in suits entering the room, surrounding another man. Elisa seemed to recognize him, and Serenity asked about his identity. Elisa revealed that he was from FC & Co., a powerful family from Annenberg, comparable to the Yorks. His name was Remy Johnson, the fifth son of the family and brother of the current head. Elisa warned Serenity not to be deceived by Remy's gentle appearance, as men like him, who were skilled in business and held powerful positions, often had a ruthless side. Her eldest brother held a favorable opinion of the Johnson family, praising their approachability and low-profile lifestyle, but also warned that they could be dangerous if angered. Serenity remembered that Zachary had once considered introducing Remy to her as a potential partner for Jasmine, but the idea was dropped due to distance and family considerations. She now understood the importance of being cautious and not underestimating the complexities of dealing with powerful men like Zachary and Remy. The head of the Johnson family, just like you, got married unexpectedly. His wife grew up in the countryside but had a stroke of luck as her adoptive parents loved her dearly and raised her well. She discovered her biological parents were the richest family in Meadspring. Overnight, she went from being a country bumpkin to the esteemed Missy of the Lafayette family in Meadspring. She's a perfect match for the Johnson family head in terms of status and identity. Elisa was well versed in the affairs of the gentry. She knew that her cousin was not as fortunate as Mrs. Johnson. "Saran, do you think I should go over and greet him? I've met Remy several times before," Elisa asked. Serenity chuckled, "Since you know each other, go ahead and say hello." "I think so too. Stay here while I go and greet him. Why did he come to the hospital with so many bodyguards? Is he afraid the nurses will prick him to death?" Elisa joked. Serenity burst into laughter at Elisa's playful remark. As Elisa approached Remy, he unexpectedly turned around and rushed to the washroom. His bodyguards were perplexed by the sudden turn of events. "What's wrong with Mr. Johnson?" Elisa inquired curiously. From Remy's reaction, it appeared he was suffering from a bout of diarrhea. Even his bodyguards were taken aback to see Elisa, the daughter of the Stone family, at the hospital while Remy was dealing with such an issue. "I'm here to keep my cousin company while she gets an infusion. She got hurt. Is Mr. Johnson's stomach uncomfortable?" Elisa asked with genuine concern. The bodyguard confirmed that Remy had seen a doctor and was prescribed medication, along with an intravenous infusion. Elisa stopped probing, understanding their reluctance to share more details. Upon his return from the washroom, Remy maintained a composed demeanor as he greeted both Mrs. York and Miss Stone. He showed concern for Serenity's injured finger, to which she humorously replied that she had cut it while testing the sharpness of scissors. Remy was surprised to see Elisa by Serenity's side instead of Zachary. While getting his own infusion, he engaged in conversation with Elisa to pass the time. His bodyguards assisted him and provided warm water for the infusion, hoping it would aid in his recovery. A few minutes later, Zachary rushed to the hospital, his sole focus on Serenity. He didn't notice Remy sitting with Elisa, engaged in conversation. Zachary quickly approached Serenity, examining her IV drip before gently holding up her injured finger. Concern etched on his face, he asked, "Does it hurt?" Serenity replied with a hint of humor, "Why don't you try it yourself?" Regret filled his heart, "I'm sorry, Saran. I was wrong again." But Serenity reassured him, "It has nothing to do with you. I hurt myself accidentally." Zachary met her gaze for a moment, but she looked away, causing his heart to tighten. He stood up after a brief pause and said, "The infusion is finished. I'll send you home. Rest well and avoid touching cold water for the next few days to prevent infection." Considering his busy schedule, Zachary suggested that he would take Serenity home. However, when he noticed Remy, who had been sitting there all along, he asked, "Why are you here, Mr. Johnson?" Remy playfully responded, "I'm a fully grown man, yet you didn't notice me until now. It seems I have the ability to turn invisible." Curious about Remy's situation, Zachary inquired further. Remy explained, "I don't know why, but I suddenly got a stomach bug. I came to the hospital because I couldn't handle it anymore. Elisa then instructed Zachary to call the nurse to help Serenity remove the needle. Despite not liking Elisa's commanding tone, Zachary followed her instructions. After the nurse pulled out the needle, Zachary wanted to help Serenity with the wound, but Elisa was faster and took care of it. With the infusion done, Elisa assisted Serenity to walk out, and Zachary quickly followed. He offered to take Serenity home, expressing his gratitude to Elisa for her care. Although Elisa's presence initially affected their relationship, Zachary couldn't deny that she genuinely cared for Serenity. As they left, Zachary couldn't help but feel a tinge of bitterness in his heart, realizing that Serenity seemed to care about everyone else but him. Elisa asked Serenity, "Do you want him or me to send you back?" "I'll take a cab myself," Serenity replied, not wanting to offend either Zachary or Elisa. "Let Zachary send you back. I've been out for a long time and should be going back too. My mom doesn't even know I went out," Elisa suggested, stepping down gracefully. Before leaving, Elisa turned back and called out to Zachary, "Don't force Serenity, Zachary. Also, my family will always stand on Serenity's side. Don't think that you can bully her because she doesn't have a maiden home to rely on. If you dare to restrict her freedom like the other day, I'll come to your door to beat you up." Zachary's face tensed, but he replied coldly, "You won't have the chance." Elisa then advised, "Saren, tell me if he treats you badly. I'll seek justice for you. Also, you still need to change the way you talk to me, Zachary. If you don't speak to me politely, it means you don't respect Serenity's maiden home. It also means that your love for her isn't deep enough." After Elisa left, Zachary tried to reassure Serenity, "I respect your maiden family. Elisa is just trying to drive a wedge between us. She wants us to separate." But Serenity defended Elisa, saying, "Elisa told me many things about you before you arrived, but none of it was her trying to drive a wedge between us. Don't judge her. Elisa is a very good girl." Serenity then took the bag of medicine and walked away, leaving Zachary itching to know what they discussed. He followed her outside, and Jim and the others greeted Serenity respectfully. But she didn't get into Zachary's car and chose Jim's car instead. Zachary returned to the office and shut himself in, ordering no disturbances. Serenity, back at the bookstore, sat at the checkout counter, contemplating her future. Jasmine offered her support, but Serenity couldn't help feeling like she needed a quick way to earn money. Jasmine laughed, suggesting, "If you're lucky, go buy lottery tickets. You'll have a large amount of money if you win a few million." Serenity replied with a sigh, "Forget it. I've never been that lucky. I have to earn money through my own efforts. It's no wonder I've always been poor." "Why are you suddenly thinking about making money? Do you lack money now?" Jasmine asked. "I only have a few $100,000 in my savings account." "I don't lack money, but I'm not considered rich either. Elisa said a lot of things to me. I need to think about the reality gap between Zachary and me," Serenity replied. "Are you not angry at him anymore?" Jasmine inquired. "Whether or not I'm angry, I still have to think about my future with him," Serenity sighed. "I just wanted to find an ordinary man. How did I jump into such a large pit? Now, I can't back out. Elisa said that even if I sue for divorce, I won't be able to leave if Zachary doesn't let me. If you dare to sue for divorce, he'll imprison you for the rest of your life," Jasmine added. "Stop bringing that up. It'll only make me angrier," Serenity replied as she ate a piece of honeydew. "This melon is quite sweet," she commented. "Of course it is. I picked it out myself. At first, We were all worried that Elisa would turn against you when she found out. Judging by her reaction, she's still rational. Although she's also angry, she doesn't blame you for it, Jasmine said. If Elisa wants to blame anyone, she can only blame the fact that Mr. York and her weren't meant to be. After all, Mr. York never liked her or gave her any promises. She has the right to like Mr. York, and he has the right to reject her. You just need to consider the reality between you and Mr. York. You don't have to worry about anything else. Serenity put down her fork and sighed again. Let me think about it on my own. They were all trying to persuade her. Okay, I won't say anything. You mull over it yourself. Besides, I'll support you no matter what decision you make. Aren't you eating anymore? I'm not hungry, Serenity replied. Jasmine did not force her. People who were hurt by love were like this. Some stuffed themselves, while others stopped eating and sleeping. The sky gradually darkened, and there was the sound of footsteps outside. Soon, Grandma May and Tanya walked in. Grandma May, Jasmine greeted but didn't know Tanya and refrained from greeting her. Serenity stood up. Nana, Mom, what are you doing here? Grandma May had come to apologize to Serenity personally. She admitted that she was the first person to lie to Serenity about Zachary and how she forced and coaxed him to marry her. Finally, she said apologetically, Saran, Zach lied to you because I started it. If you want to blame anyone, then blame me. After a conversation and apology, Grandma May and Tanya left. Serenity then called Zachary and asked him to pick her up after work for a talk. He nervously agreed to do so. After calling Zachary, Serenity informed her sister, Liberty, that she would be going back to Brinfield in the evening to have a talk with him before returning to the rented apartment. Liberty assured her that the door would be left open no matter how late she arrived. After the call, Serenity didn't immediately return to the store. Instead, she took a solitary walk along the river in front of the school, allowing the cold wind to clear her mind. The pressing issue was not her anger, but the reality gap between her and Zachary. During her walk, she noticed Jasmine following her from a distance. Serenity paused and then approached her friend. Jasmine explained that she followed to make sure she could help if needed. Serenity hugged her gratefully, feeling fortunate to have such a supportive best friend. They decided to head back to eat, but Serenity mentioned that she had asked Zachary to pick her up later. Jasmine asked if she had forgiven him, to which Serenity replied that she was still angry, but she wanted to talk it out with him to address the issues between them. Zachary arrived quickly with Josh, inviting Jasmine to dinner. Josh asked if they had made up, noting that Zachary looked ecstatic, but Jas exclaimed that it would take time for the two to reconcile. At Brinfield, Zachary suggested that Serenity watch TV while he cooked. He put on an apron and went to the kitchen. He ordered groceries and insisted on cooking himself. Serenity silently went to the balcony to water the flowers, but Zachary hurriedly warned her not to let water touch her injured hand to avoid infection. Serenity held the watering can in her right hand, signaling to Zachary that her injury was on the left hand. He insisted on taking care of the flowers and led her to the swing chair, even bringing her a jacket to keep warm. He went to the kitchen to prepare dinner while Serenity watched him quietly, reminiscing about their past and the sweetness they once shared. After some time, Zachary served the dinner, making sure to prepare Serenity's favorite dishes. She hesitated, expressing her fear of disappointing him, but he assured her that he could accept anything as long as she stayed with him. They had an emotional conversation during the meal, with Zachary being extremely considerate and nervous. After dinner, He took his time washing the dishes before finally sitting across from Serenity with a serious expression. He felt like he was awaiting judgment, but Serenity reassured him that she just wanted to talk. Nonetheless, he couldn't help but feel anxious about the outcome of their conversation, comparing it to facing the guillotine. At first, I was really furious when I discovered your lie. But let's set that aside for now. Look at yourself, you seem so agitated. Even my best friend is speaking up for you and defending you. Serenity expressed her feelings. Zachary acknowledged his mistake, admitting that he shouldn't have concealed the truth for so long, and even allowed her to find out in such a way. He also mentioned that Ben had suggested this approach, but Serenity retorted that Zachary had sought Ben's advice in the first place. Then Serenity brought up the issue of trust, stating that she felt he didn't trust her enough. He confessed that he used to be doubtful and guarded against her, thinking she was after his wealth. However, he now completely believed in her character. Serenity then proposed signing another contract, expressing her concerns about the vast gap between them. She saw Zachary as an elite, born into a billionaire family, while she considered herself an ordinary woman with a troubled family background. Zachary firmly interrupted, emphasizing that he saw her as a match for him and refused to let her belittle herself. He assured her that she didn't need any skills or income to support the family, as he was more than capable of doing so himself. He revealed the generous allowances they received from the family trust fund and handed her his black card as a symbol of financial security. Serenity, however, questioned whether he wanted her to be a confined canary or a companion walking beside him in their marriage. Zachary was left silent, contemplating Serenity's question and the future of their relationship. What I'm trying to convey is that I need some time to see if I can fit into your world. If it turns out that I can't, I won't force myself, and you shouldn't force me either. An imbalanced marriage won't stand the test of time, Serenity expressed, her tone resolute yet cautious. She explained further, your feelings for me may be intense now because of our recent connection. You believe you can accept every aspect of me, regardless of my status. But as time goes by, you may realize that we have little in common. I won't understand your financial discussions, investments, or stocks. I'll feel out of place when socializing with your friends and their wives because we won't share similar interests and conversation topics. Serenity continued, I don't want to be a mere decoration by your side, limited to only being clothed and fed. I want to be your equal, walking hand in hand with you. However, the gap between our starting points is significant, and I struggle to catch up. That's why I believe we need to start anew. Please give me the chance to at least try. Zachary's face darkened as he responded, why do you care so much about what others think? I can support you, and we can build a family together. You don't need to be concerned about their opinions. They may be envious of you being part of the York family and my wife. He tried to reassure her, my friends won't look down on you. I'll make sure they stick to topics you're comfortable with during our gatherings. We can talk about everyday life, simple things, and have fun together. Zachary addressed her fears, I know your sister's failed marriage has had a profound impact on you. But please trust me, I won't turn into someone like Hank. I love you unconditionally, with all your strengths and flaws. There's no need to sign any contracts or worry about leaving me. You're still angry about my past deception, and I understand that. Serenity struggled to keep her emotions in check as she found his stubbornness difficult to address in a few words. She reminded herself to endure and consider the best approach. Zachary's perspective seemed limited to his status as the eldest young master of the York family, thinking he could fulfill all her needs financially and providing a worry-free life in Wiltspoon. This portrayal of her being treated like a caged canary disturbed her. Her sister's experience with Hank echoed in her mind. They too had exchanged vows of eternal commitment, yet their marriage ended in divorce just 7 years later. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channels, The Voice channel, and watch my original creations, as well as my new channel La Novela Devotion showcasing the forbidden love story. Please don't forget to hit all from the notification bell, so you will get notified whenever a new video is uploaded. Thank you.